Hello, everyone. Welcome to our session here today. Before we get started, I just want to kind of give a background on what our audience is. Who has heard of Fast Track? You don't count. You're part of our team. Who has actually onboarded through Fast Track? Ooh, fantastic. Who's in migrations for Fast Track? 2. Who's completed migrations with Fast Track? All right. You 2 that are doing migrations with Fast Track, come get a t-shirt at the end. So let's see here. Does this work? There we go. So before we dive into really what the Fast Track migration program is, I want to talk a little bit about what Fast Track All Up, since we had some people not raise their hands, which is fine. It's a new program. We started back in September 1st, launched. And Fast Track program is the approach that Microsoft uses for coming onto Office 365 for onboarding and migrations. Your field resellers can work with you on this. Partners can work with you. Or you can do it yourself with Microsoft. It's a free service, and we're trying to help you all, once you choose to go with Office 365, consume the service. Part of all about Fast Track is following the approach of the plan, trial, the plan, and then moving into the assess, remediate, enable, and then lastly migrate. And then once you're done with that, the best part is actually using it. You don't want to just get on board and not use it, and also want to make sure that you're getting the full benefits of the service. When you purchase, we will automatically contact you. If you're an eligible SKU, we will contact you with the onboarding center. It's in the end your choice whether you actually migrate data. I actually prefer customers that go net new while I schlep the data over. But I own that migration part of that piece, and then you'll have the opportunity to work with us on migrations. So let me just go a little bit into the history of where this whole thing came from. When we started, this started about 11 years ago. If you probably all familiar with Exchange Labs, were around at one point. We also had what we called MMS. That was the forefather of BPOSBest and BPOSD. And we put all this stuff together, started doing this for customers. We helped some really big customers move to MMS, which then was rebranded as BPOSD. And then those came together, BPOSS and BPOSD. And then you had Exchange Labs working on really tool development for how we could do this. It was used in the edu space, education, Exchange Online. And then with Office 365, we pulled it together. When we pulled it together, we thought we had a good ecosystem to go forward for customers to really consume the service. And we received a lot of feedback from customers that there were still a lot of challenges in consuming the service. And so what we did was we looked at it with our different parts of Microsoft, said, what do we need to do to help our customers? And what is the number one challenge in this? And the customer said, well, I purchase, and then I take forever to consume the service. That's why we introduced Fast Track, hence the name Fast Track. So with that being said, we designed this, and what we're trying to do with this, there's 2 approaches to the Fast Track program, is not only help the customer, but also take what we learn from helping the customers to drive to our tool sets to make our tools better for the customers all up. So that not every customer has to use Fast Track, but they all get the benefits of it. I'm going to go through back a little bit more history on that, and then we'll dive into more of the technical pieces of how the migration team works doing these migrations for customers. But before I do that, I'm going to dive a little bit who I am and who my teammate here up, Anbu, on the stage with me. My name is Thomas Wicker. I've been doing mail migrations for Microsoft for 9 years. I was part of that MMS crew that moved our first seats to Office 365. And I've gone through all the different revolutions of moving from 5.5 to 2003, moving customers from these different versions of Exchange and Notes mail. At that time was still Notes, and which is now IBM Domino. And then over the time, I also worked in the product group as an individual team working on some features for Microsoft. But then when we came back to making this Fast Track program, I came back to this because I really have a passion for trying to help all our customers really consume the service and have a great experience coming on. So I'll let Anbu here introduce himself a little bit.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Anbu, and I have been part of this migrations team for the past 5+ years, migrating customers from various sources, starting from Notes to on-premise initially, and then we started migrating them to multi-tenant, dedicated as part of the fast track and the other initiatives as well. So we will, back to Thomas.
Yep. So I know for all of you, when you make that purchase, there's a concern about what am I onboarding into? And when we started this, when it was BPOS S, BPOS D, all these pieces, it was like a city, the scale that we had there. And then as we started really ramping those up together, we came to kind of a country-size scale, and now we are at a global scale. Our data centers are across the world. I had somebody in one of the booths ask me yesterday, I'm in the booth, and said, what is the security level like? And Microsoft is using itself using Office 365. We are on it. We are probably one of the bigger targets for spammers or anything like that. And there was a great session on spamming earlier today. We consume it, therefore it's probably a pretty good product. It is a really good product, not probably. So we built that scale, and if we look at that scale, we take it from where we were starting this off underneath desks. Not literally, maybe the pilot was underneath the desk. But then we moved in circa 2007, moved to real racks. So we're now today, we are global infrastructure. We have data centers around the world that are creating the replication of your data for Office 365 for continuous service. And then we also have done a lot of work on the physical environment of security. These places are extremely secure for your data. And all these pieces are put in place so your data is safe for you and the business that you're running. So I'm going to dive a little bit into what the migration team or migrations into Office 365 is like. Migration starts actually when you decide to onboard to Microsoft. It doesn't start when you're done onboarding or you're ready, your lights are green and you can start using the service. You have to start planning in the beginning. And if you remember the original template I showed where it had all the different phases, when you're planning or you're doing your trial, you're already thinking about your mail migrations. And we have these 4 phases that we go through a customer. We have assess, remediate, enable, and migrate. These 4 phases are actually very critical phases once you've made that purchase, that you do the due diligence, plan through them so you can execute that end phase of migrate correctly. The Onboarding Center and the Fast Track Migration Program, which is part of the Onboarding Center, has developed roles to actually meet that need. The Onboarding Migration Manager and engineers are the people that will take you through the onboarding phase. And then we've added the role of the Migration Velocity Manager to work with you directly on getting those migration. If you look, the Migration Velocity Manager starts in the assess phase with you. They actually start engaging with you to help you plan that migration phase. The more you plan ahead, the smoother your migrations go. We also have engineers that come in, migration engagement leads that come in and work with you on the technical aspects to make sure everything is constantly up running. They stay in your migrations with you throughout the whole story. So do your onboarding managers and onboarding engineers. That full team is there free for you, helping you get onto the service. And then lastly, we have the migration team that actually engages in the migration phase to really push all those mailboxes through. And they do that for you. Just to cover quickly our eligibility. Today, it stands that we have customers that purchase 150 seats or more post September 1st, and the licenses are listed there. I'm not going to go through details in there. What we do offer is also from all platforms of Exchange, well, starting at Exchange 2003. We also do multi-forest Exchange migrations. We also do IBM Domino, IMAP, GroupWise, and Gmail migrations, includes calendar and contacts. We also can do a variety. So if you have multiple platforms on your system, we can do migrations from multiple platforms, but we'll do them in not a non-parallel process, so sequentially, to provide the best experience for you as a business. That's from what our experience has been with customers, is driving it that way is the best way to consume the service. So, without further ado, we're going to start talking about the bigger team and how we function and bring you these big migrations. And Ambu's going to start at the very beginning at the simple level. Mm-hmm.
I'll show you a quick demo of how do we move a mailbox. So moving a mailbox is very easy when you have a less number of mailboxes in your organization. You can use variety of tools, or you can even use the Exchange admin console to perform the simplest of the mailbox moves. Once your tenant is enabled, sorry?
It's not showing up. Okay, there we go. Just got a little drag and drop.
Yeah. That should be good.
So you want it?
Yep. Thanks so much. So once you log into the Exchange admin console, you select the admin part of it, and then you go to this window where you select the migration option. It will show you the list of all the users available in your organization by default, and you start by configuring the MRS endpoint. So MRS endpoint is you will start configuring by selecting the Exchange remote as an option here, because we will use that part of migration in the demo. You need to give an on-prem email address initially, and then the account details with the admin privileges, which has the privileges to move a mailbox. So we are picking up a local on-prem email address. Adding the account with privileges to migrate the mailbox.
You have a question back there. We're actually going to hold questions.
A request, not a question. Is there a way for you to Zoom on the Teams that you're working on?
Let me try that.
No, it's not. It's going to be over there.
No, it's not.
No, sorry. But if you do have questions, please, if you can hold them and wait to the end, and then when you do have them, please go up to the mic so we can get this recorded, because we're doing this in a recorded session.
So it is trying to do the auto discover the MRS endpoint here. I'll just move a little bit further. Sometimes it does fail, so in that case you need to enter the server name manually to move ahead. So it was not able to detect the MRS endpoint, so we are entering the Exchange server details manually here. So once we enter it manually, it is successful, and then we are giving a name to the endpoint. For the sake of the demo, we are giving it as test demo. We enter the maximum concurrent corrections as 10. By default, it can be 100. It is 100 by default. Once the MRS endpoint is established, the next step is to start the migrations. So we need to give input of the users. Either you can select them manually in this, or you can also provide a CSV input with a list of users that you want to do the migrations. So in this case, you can, even if you have say like 30 users or 50 users, you can just do a cutover migration of all of them. So you can select all the users by default. If you are going for a selection of the users, then you will have to do one by one. So instead, you can have all the users in a CSV file, import the list, and then do all the migrations at once. So if you want to only migrate few users, you can search for the username, select only those users, and also do migrations only for those users. If you do that way, then it would be a staged migrations and not a cutover migration. Once you select the users, the next step is to select the MRS endpoint that you want to migrate the users from. So a lot of organizations have different countries or users in different regions. So typically we suggest them to create endpoints for that specific region. So when you're migrating a user of a specific region, you select that endpoint so the migration happens faster. So here there are various options, like if you want to start the batch immediately or configure it for a later point of time, or if you want to do the complete mailbox migration or do the SWRC of setting up only 95% of the mailbox for now and 5% later. So once you select the user and start the migration, initially the user goes into validating state where it runs some internal commands for validating the user that the user will be successful to migrate. Then it goes into the other phases like syncing, etc. So if you see, this user is in syncing state. Once the migration is completed, it go into the completed state. And during the process of the migration as well, so here in this screen it provides you details on the status of the user, what items have been synced and what are the items skipped. You can further go into the details by looking at the log as well. So this is how we migrate using the EAC tool, part of the Exchange console.
Good. So as you can see, the tool is there. It's available for you to use today. But when we start talking about doing your business at scale, we can see this would be okay to go through for 1 or 2 users or a set of 50. But when we start talking about this at scale, if you have a 150 seat tenant or 200 people, 400 people, 1,000 people, 10,000 people, this makes this quite a bit more of a challenge for you to do. And it's a lot of intense labor or time that you have to commit to making this happen for you as a business. That's why we created the Fast Track Migration Program. We take on that work for you. We help you set up the endpoints. We handle all the migration pieces. You provide us the schedule. So that's why we created the Fast Track OB migration team. Just that. Did we lose? There we go. So what we bring to the table is years of experience, as we explained. Our team is globally around, and what we're doing is to try to provide you a better story for managing how you move to the service. So Anbu is now going to go into the details of how we actually do this as a business and provide you that support to deliver these velocity migrations or high number migrations.
Okay. So as Thomas mentioned earlier, Fast Track is the only way for moving customers into Office 365 currently as part of the Fast Track program. We provide a lot of experts who can guide you through the entire process end to end, starting from the initiation phase until the migration completion as well. So what we do as part of this is, you have seen the earlier slide where we spoke about the assess phase, remediate, enable, and the migrate phase. As part of the assessment phase, the onboarding manager gets in touch with you to understand the details, and then there are variety of tools available with us which we will give it to the customers to run on their environment, which will assess their identity issues, if there are any Active Directory issues or valid invalid duplicate names, etc. So those kind of tools will help assess the current infrastructure, and it will give you a report which you can use to remediate these users, to fix it, and it will give you a smooth execution into migration. So how we do it is, we have been doing this migrations for the past so many years that we have a proven methodology, tool sets, processes that we use, which we are consistently using, and we have a success rate of around 99% plus for all these migrations. And we also have a global reach. We have migrations across the globe. We have teams in US, Poland, China, India, and even in Philippines for doing migrations across the globe based on the customer needs on the local regions as well. And we are supporting multiple languages as part of the fast track program. There are around 12 languages that we support, starting from Brazilian, Portuguese, Spanish, Chinese, Japanese, then Italian, French, German, etc. And all the resources are there in these locations for supporting the migrations. So we support different sources for migration, starting from Exchange 2003 environment onto the Office 365, IBM Domino, IMAP, Google GroupWise as well. And the different methods that we do is, we do cutover, staged, or even simple MRS, hybrid kind of migrations as well. And then for IBM Domino as well, we do cutover and staged migrations. Gmail with calendar and contacts, similarly GroupWise as well, and IMAP. So all these migration methods are supported, and the destination is Office 365 multi-tenant. This is a pretty important slide. For any successful migrations, we need to look at a specific timeline. So any migration that goes through, it goes through this specific timeline. So we say that if you have a batch of users for migrations, you need to plan them at least 21 days in advance. Because 21 days in advance, if you have the schedule created, then you can run the pre-flight check on these users, making sure that they are ready for migration. So depending on the migration type, say for example, if it's a notes migration, there are a lot of tasks that you need to do before the migration. Say 21 days before you start, you need to start creating the replica of the user files, and then start doing audit replica or audit mail files, or sending communication, or decrypt, or some of these commands. So you can't do that within a very short period of time. The replication also takes time. So 21 days is the minimum that we give as a suggestive guidance from our end. But if the customers are ready, if your infrastructure is really ready, and if you have all the checklist cleared for us, we can also look at 5 days as well, 5 days before the migration. But 21 days would certainly be required for you to prepare well in advance for a successful migration event. And if you are having a small set of users, we can look at reducing these numbers. But if you are having like a lot of users, like 10,000, 20,000, or even 50,000 users, your plan will run into multiple weeks. So when that runs into multiple weeks, you need to have a clear-cut timeline. Say T minus 21. Today is 6th of May. Today you will start planning for users to be migrated on, say, 26th of May. So tomorrow's batch would be for 27th of May. So you have enough time for replicating all these users into Azure and then doing other tasks from a Lotus Notes migration perspective. Similarly, if you talk about Exchange migrations, for Exchange the key thing is the user readiness or the current infrastructure readiness. So running pre-flights, we provide with the pre-flight tools for you to run the pre-flight on your own environment to make sure that the users that you are planning to get migrated, they are all in a valid, healthy state to get migrated into Office 365. So this timeline is a suggestive guidance, we say, and we can certainly look at options of reducing it to T-5 if the infrastructure from your side is ready. And again on T-0, that is the day of the migration, we also run pre-flights from our end to make sure that the users that we are submitting for migrations are all going to be successful for migrations. Let's look at some of the prerequisites for migrations. So before we get started with the assess phase, the first prerequisite is the readiness of a deployment plan. We need to have a deployment plan ready. The deployment plan consists of what would be the scope of the project, what are the timelines that you're looking at to complete the end-to-end deployment work, what are the various services that you're going to use as part of the Office 365 product, and then what are the various risks, or what are the other things that you want to include as part of it. So this is the first requirement that we need to have. As soon as you have the deployment plan ready, then the assess phase starts, where the onboarding manager and the onboarding engineer will review the deployment plan, work with you to start looking at or reviewing your environment for migration readiness. So once the deployment plan is signed off, then the successful completion of assess, remediate and enable phase. When I say the successful completion of assess, remediate and enable phase, what I mean is there are certain series of steps and tasks that need to be run as part of these phases, and there are deliverables, and we need to complete all of these before we actually get into migrations. We cannot directly jump into migration saying that, hey, I have 10 users and we need to migrate directly, without actually looking at your environment and performing these steps. And performing the pre-flights is key to all the successful migrations, because these pre-flight tools help us identify what are the various issues that we have within our Active Directory environment with respect to these users. If you are not looking at migrations, or if you are not maintaining your Active Directory in a healthy state, regularly maintaining them, we will end up having a lot of issues with the users, which you wouldn't know if you are still if you are not migrating onto Office 365. So as a prerequisite, we perform this pre-flight, which does a variety of checks depending on the type of migration method you choose. So we'll do a quick walkthrough on the pre-flight and how we do it. We have different pre-flight tools based on the environment that you have. These pre-flight tools will be run on your source environment. So these tools would be given to you, and the onboarding engineer would be guiding you to run these tools. So say for example, if it is an Exchange to Exchange migration, there is a different set of tools when compared to the pre-flight that we do for a Google or an IMAP migration. So this is for an Exchange hybrid thing. This is the tool that we have. We create a project, typically a project name is a customer name that we can look at, or you can have your organization name. And then if you are having multiple organizations spanned across different places in the world, then you can create different projects to identify those users separately. You provide the remote host name, and you configure some of these key parameters like bad item limit, the target delivery domain, and then you add the project. Once you add and save the project, the next thing is you also give details as to what is the account that we need to use to run the pre-flight tools. These are like the username and password that you provide here, and save it one time, because if you are having large number of users, you would be using this tool multiple times for every batch of users that you want to migrate. If you are having say 150 users only, and if you are planning to do only one migration event, so then you might have to use this tool only once. But if there is large number of users spanning across multiple times, so it's better you save these details here. As part of the migrations, one of the key things that we also need to understand is the migrations are scheduled in different windows and groups. within a given day, based on different time zones, we offer around 8 different times where you can choose the user to be migrated. So we say it is window 1, group 1. So we need to create a schedule template for the pre-flight as well. So the pre-flight can be run like 21 days before migration or even further or even less. But when you're running it for the first time, you can include all the users in the organization, or you can only run it for a specific batch. So when you're running it for all the users in the organization, you can provide the date of migration, which window, which group, and what is the primary SMTP address. These are the 4 fields that we will need when we want to run the pre-flight against these users. So if you're planning to run it against only one event, then you need to mention the users who are going to be migrated only for that event. Select the file that we want to do the pre-flight, load it, and then sometimes what would happen is some customers will maintain one single schedule file for multiple events as well. So for that reason, we have given options of, select the date from the Excel and which window, which group that you want to run the pre-flight for. So the pre-flight is currently running, and it will provide us the status of the users, whether they are pre-flight passed or failed. The pre-flight failed users, we will also let you know what is the reason for the failure, so you can go and remediate them and fix them before scheduling them again for migrations. So now we'll again go back to the T-21 timeline. So if you're running a pre-flight on, say, 10,000 users on T-21, 21 days before the migration, and if you're having failures like, say, 200, 300 users, then you will need time to remediate them. So that is the reason we are saying that, you need to plan upfront. You need to give enough number of days. So you are having your help desk or your IT people to fix any of the pre-flight failures that we receive. So this tool you can keep on running multiple times till you are sure that all the users are ready for migration. And once you post the schedule file 5 days before the migration, we also run another pre-flight from our side to make sure that all the users are ready for migrations, because we do not want any user to fail the migration. So you can see that there are few users who are failed and few of them who are passed. So you can export either all passed or failed users depending on the need. Export it into an Excel sheet. It will have detailed description of what is the error, which will actually help you to fix based on the error. So from a process perspective, the exported, before we start the migrations, when we do the pre-flight, we also mention the number of users failed and we exclude from the migration that we are going to do for those users. This is how the pre-flight is done as part of our process. Okay. The next important thing is moving to Office 365 is a big change management process that you need to do. There is a lot of internal communications that you need to do. So as part of the initial phase, as part of the deployment plan itself, you need to include, how are you going to communicate to your end users, on which date they are going to migrate, what is the plan, have your internal help desk ready for any issues or any support that might be needed. And typically, say for example, if it is a notes to Exchange migration, if you are doing migrations from notes, there might be certain post-migration issues. So we have a post-migration plan in place, and we also do remediation of notes migrations if the user has any issues with respect to the migrations. So you also need to educate that process back with your IT help desk team as well. So these are critical activities that we need to do before we get into the migration. And also as part of the migration, before we do a full-blown velocity migration, we do something called as the early adopter migration to make sure you understand the process. We select a few users, or you can identify few users from different departments within your organization and say, these are the early adopters whom we will migrate. We will follow the exact same process that we follow in the velocity, so you understand and come back with any questions and stuff like that during the early adopter migrations itself. And the end users also will understand the communication that will go out, because when we migrate, there are reports that we send out which will be consumed by you. So how do we manage the migrations? As I said, we are having teams globally. So this is our global migration control center that we have, where we monitor all the migrations happening across the different teams in different regions that we have. We know who is migrating, which customer is migrating, and what is the migrations that are happening at any point of time. We use this specific command center to do the same.
So as we do these migrations, and we have this team globally placed for you to help you do your migrations, a lot of what we also gain is every time we do migrations, our process and our suggested methodology for how to handle scenarios becomes more and more honed in. And we're able to provide you that knowledge when you come onto our service. Part of that is what we also learn is we learn deployment insights. We get what the perceived risks are, and these are things that we can provide to you, and we actually provide in the early phases are things you need to consider for when you're going to onboard to Office 365 or do migrations. And we give you those same learnings when we actually talk about the mail migrations and what those pieces are. We also have a lot of customers that give us great references, and we actually have one and you might have heard about DTEC in one of our onboarding centers, onboarding side of our team's presentation. DTEC is a customer in the Ukraine area, and they're C-level class people. They need to get out of there to Office 365 fast. As you guys know, unfortunately, it's not a very safe area right now. And we actually onboarded and migrated those users within 21 days of them saying we need to do this. And this is something that the onboarding and Fast Track can provide you, is a quick move of your users. Now, with mail migrations, I'll be very frank, the more data you migrate, the slower it goes. And so, we can get you going into migrations, and we'll help you through the migration. We'll do the migrations with you. But the more data you move, the longer it takes. So this customer moved these initial set of their keyed mailboxes, did a great set, got that completed. I think it was 500 users, I believe, was the first set. And now they're moving on to do the rest of their business after the non-critical mailboxes were moved. So they're also willing to give us a great statement here of how much they really, really appreciate the work we were able to do and help them guide them through that story, including the onboarding and migration. So, great story there. I'm going to provide one last kind of video, and then we can go into a kind of a Q&A. Because migrations is kind of a big topic. We talked probably about some pieces here that you all might have questions for. But I'm just going to do this quick video about meeting the OBC and who we are. Can we get the volume up on this one? Hold on. Helps to have the volume turned up. He's got it.
At Microsoft, our vision for Office 365 deployment is very straightforward. We want every single customer that purchases Office 365 to have a great onboarding experience.
For Office 365, we wanted our customers to be able to purchase today and consume tomorrow. To do that, we needed to take the pain out of getting there. Engineering picked up the challenge of Office 365 deployment by recognizing that customer experience isn't what we wanted.
Fast Track is our Office 365 deployment motion. One of the really exciting aspects of Fast Track is that every customer has a direct connection to our Office 365 engineering team when they go through the Fast Track Onboarding Center.
The Onboarding Center is a global team supporting 8 different languages across all time zones. and it's made up of engineers and onboarding managers ready to engage directly with customers.
Before joining the OBC, I was a technical account manager, or TAM, for about the last 10 years, both in Europe and here in the States. And I think the experience of working with customers, with account teams, with services and support, all sort of combined into a great background for being an onboarding manager.
Well, I've been with Microsoft 18 years, and I was a senior escalation engineer as well as a technical advisor. And so there's very few environments that I haven't come across.
The onboarding center is for companies of all sizes, from small, medium to large enterprise customers.
We've got a really prescriptive process, and so by being able to tell customers what they need to do and when, it really eases a lot of their discomfort around what steps they're going to need to take, and we're able to identify risks and concerns that they might have.
The general feedback is that most customers are surprised to even hear from us, and they're actually excited to know that they're not out there alone and that we're here to help them, that we want to make sure that their experience is perfect.
The onboarding center is open for business. We already have 2,000 customers that are going through the process, and we are ready to help.
Customers want a one-button approach to migrations, but until we have that, the migration team is here to help.
The Office 365 team, we're here to help.
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 Wir sind hier zum Helfen.
Because we're here to help.
That we're here to help.
Estamos aquí para ayudarles.
We are here to help.
And we're here to help.
We are here to help.
We are here to help. So just to kind of bring this all around, actually that number's not 2,000 anymore. It's over 5,000 customers we've brought through the Fast Track. Really, we encourage you, if you're looking to come onto Office 365, have made that purchase, to go look at the Fast Track program, use it. You get it as a benefit as part of the purchase. At the bottom there, you can see we have how you can engage, the URL. Go to deploy.office.com, and go to onboarding and request onboarding, and people will become engaged with you on onboarding to Office 365 and get the migrations. I open it now to some questions. I open for anything about the mail migrations or questions on onboarding. Yes, go ahead.
In the migrations, we find some bandwidth limitations in place.
Yes.
Can you talk about what those are specifically? I've seen some conflicting data, and when you guys do a migration, are you able to get around those bandwidth limitations to speed things up?
So it depends on what type of migration method you're doing, or what.
Staged.
Staged. Okay. So we're able to stage the data. The thing that you have to consider, and we do also have some network in the onboarding phase. We help you with a network assessment to make sure that what do you have available. On the Microsoft side, I have a hard time finding where we're actually a bottleneck for what you can do. So majority of the time, if you're doing MRS migrations, you can pull that data over, we can stage it, and then we can do the cut over or flip over on.
So during staging, you're not aware of so I think I read if you're doing one mailbox, it limits it to around a gig every 2 hours. If you're doing 2 mailboxes at a time, it'll double that. It'll double your throughput all the way up to 10 mailboxes. Are you not
I am
familiar
not
with that?
familiar with that statement at all.
Maybe let me dig up an article and maybe we can talk about
and that's fair. Now, if you're using some methods that are out there, some tool sets use EWS, which does have throttling throughput on it.
Maybe that's what we're doing.
Yeah. So.
And really quick, how long will a mailbox stay synced before it's automatically canceled and we have to restage it again?
Do you recall that? Is there an actual point that it drops it? Not for the MRS, no. What can happen though is that if it is doing a sync and let's say there is a network drop, it can have a hard time to reconnect.
Sometimes I'll do a sync and a user won't be ready or available, like a high priority user,
right,
to do the cutover, and maybe it sits in there for a few weeks, and then I go back and it says canceled.
30 days?
30 days. Okay. Thank you.
Correct. And yeah, so what he was saying, it depends on what source platform. And that's the hard part on a lot of these things. People ask us, how fast can you move us? There's a lot of factors that sit on the customer side, and this is what we also try to help give guidance of what to look for or concerns that you might have, or things you need to think about when you're planning your velocity. I think this gentleman over here on the left, purple shirt, I think you had a question.
very quickly, we're actually going to be going through the migration process from Notes to Office 365. With regard to, we are in a regulated company, so we have to ensure that all the mail moves over. You know, we have legal hold and things like that. So the verification and validation of the fact of that the mail actually moved over, does that fall on the customer or does that fall on Microsoft?
Do you want to take that one? You're on.
See, from a tool perspective, what we do is we analyze the logs to make sure that the log says that everything is migrated finally. But we don't actually go in and check in the mailbox to see mail-to-mail comparison. So the end user is the right person to say whether the mails have come or not. So as per the log file, if it says that it has been migrated successfully, that is what we report it back. But if the end user feels that there are some folders or some mails which have not been migrated, then they can raise a support ticket back as part of a post-migration plan. And we again go ahead and check if there is any issue, if there are any items skipped, because sometimes the log can say some of the items are skipped because it is not able to read. Some of the Lotus Notes or the Domino old versions, right, if they are not compacted or maintained properly, then there are a lot of corruptions which does not get moved over. So there is a lot of those maintenance that needs to be done, but if the user says it is missing, we will remediate it, remediate and try to move it back into the.
Is there any automated tools for us to quickly determine, have all the folders been moved, is there a way in which we can validate that? Do you have any tools to be able to do that from your end?
So from our end, we do monitor on what are the items that are getting migrated. So we can always write a script to find out what are the items that have been migrated, but from Lotus Notes, you will have to do manual comparison. It will not actually show item to item that it has migrated. It will say those many number of items have been migrated. And the way the Lotus Notes store items and Exchange stores items are totally different, because in Lotus Notes it might say like 100,000 items, but once it gets migrated into Office 365, it might only say 50,000. But it might have migrated everything. It would give a wrong picture when you compare it with the item count. Okay. So the best part is for the end user himself to make sure that, to see if he's having any of the items missing and stuff like that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
We'll take one from over here.
Sure. Two quick questions. Within your process, when the client is doing a hybrid move, is there any analysis of dependencies on delegates, or is it up to the client to handle that?
We have scripts that we can provide to help you understand how your delegates structure is, so when you're planning the schedule. In hybrid, if you're on Exchange 2010 and 2013, the delegation doesn't truly break if you do have a mistake. It won't work until that other person migrates, but you don't have to reset up the delegation.
Right, and since clients have the option of the onboarding center versus also using a partner, is there any plan to make those types of scripts and some of those pre-deployment analysis tools available to the partners?
You get the onboarding center no matter what, right? And so they can provide you some of those scripts.
Okay, but as partners, you're not releasing those to partners?
They're all PowerShell. I mean, it's publicly available stuff. So, yep. Riaz, do you want to go to a mic so we can get it recorded? Just respond on that mic so everybody gets the recording from the question.
So from the partner perspective, the onboarding center works with the partner. So you as a partner can engage the onboarding center to do those tasks on your behalf. So there's nothing releasing. You can still engage with Thomas's team to do the exact same thing. So there's no need so don't think of it as either partner or OBC. You can work side by side with the onboarding center.
Was that your two questions? Great. We'll go here, and then I'll go in the back row.
I have two questions also. One of them is we're in a Notes 9 environment, which is pretty current. Yep. And we have really large mailboxes.
Yeah.
I mean, and what I want to know is how do you guys handle people that have archived data, for years, with like EV or products like that? Because once we unarchive that data, I mean, even if we did, it took me like a year to archive it.
Yep.
And so just to unarchive it, I don't even know how long it would take. But once I do it, it's single instanced across like the whole country. Yep. So it would be really, really large. How do you guys handle that kind of a scenario?
So we, in our offer, we actually don't do archive migrations. As part of that, we have a lot of great partners, and there's actually some in the crowd that can actually help you out with those archive migrations. Strongly suggest you don't repopulate, rehydrate, because the whole point of purchasing Office 365 is to actually consume the service. And if you start migrating huge, especially something like Notes, the conversion time from NSF to PST, converting that data for a large mailbox takes a very, very long time. And the end user experience is not as good, and you have a longer deployment or migration time till you get there. So we actually offer, in our standard offering, is 90 days of the last email for Notes migrations.
Okay. Yeah, because a PST wouldn't even take a mail. I mean, we're well over 60 gig mailboxes. Yep. I mean, thousands of them.
Yeah.
But the other question is attachment size. We have attachments over 50 meg. I mean, commonplace. Mm-hmm. So what's the limits on the attachments that your system would import?
So today, and there was an update from the Exchange team, is that if you are running, like, let's say, Exchange, which I know that doesn't cover your question, coming from Exchange, you can actually set a limit up to, I believe, 150 megabyte on attachment size. If you're coming from Notes, we're still actually held at the 25 megabyte attachment limit. So they're working on that. It's a high priority bug for them to figure out how we can do it otherwise.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, I'm going to go take the back corner one here.
So is there another way to actually get a hold of you guys versus the website? And the reason I asked the question is because we started down this road about 1.5 years ago, signed up for it. Now when we go to the onboarding website, it says you're already in the system, but we've lost contact with whoever was assigned to our company. And now we're ready to migrate. Seems like a good service, but I have no way of getting back in contact with you guys.
Do you have an account team that you're working with?
Again, it's been like 1.5 years since we started this, so.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Get a hold of me. My name is Thomas Wicker, twicker@microsoft.com, and I'll help you out with that. Or Jeff Medford is the other person.
Okay. Thanks.
Take the other one in the back here, and I'll work my way back to the front.
Yeah, my question is about like huge mailbox database sizes, and I know that it's currently on the roadmap for drive shipping.
Yeah.
But I was wondering about like what you guys do now to, facilitate people who have like terabytes and terabytes of data in their mailbox databases and they need to get it to Office 365, and kind of guaranteeing that when if it is dropped, the drives are shipped over or whatever, that the data integrity is intact and hasn't been altered or changed anyway along the way.
We don't offer anything today in the Fast Track migration offer as far as drive shipping to move the data. The mailbox, your active mailbox, is what will move. Mm-hmm. You just have to realize there's also restrictions in Office 365 how large your end user mailbox can be.
Sure.
So that's what we offer today. That's part of the reason why, as you know, on the roadmap there is that PST import or migrate, shipping of the drive coming, and that's to address those challenges.
Cool. And then the second question I had was about like mobile devices and how you guys kind of anticipate issues beforehand. We've had a lot of customers who we move their mailboxes up and then they realize that their BlackBerry 7 isn't going to work very well. And,
yep.
So what kind of some of the things that you guys might be able to do beforehand to kind of preemptively address those issues before the client was like, oh yeah, I forgot about those phones.
Yeah. So, or they find out that they didn't think about how they had to communicate to their end users, that they had to reset their devices. Yeah. That's part of the whole part of the onboarding planning process. We go through those things with the customers or with the partner, if the partner's working with the customer, saying here's the things we really strongly suggest you work through with your end users and make sure you have communicated. This is also where the schedule comes into play, especially for, if it's like, let's say a BlackBerry, that the user also knows when the changes happen so they can update their devices at the right time. And that's where we do provide communications after migrations. This is done. Here's who's not done. Here's what needs to be completed for these users.
Yeah.
So.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yep. Take the other one in the back corner there.
Hi. When I started listening to what this offering was, I started firing off an email because I didn't hear of this beforehand. And our Microsoft account rep responded, the reason he didn't tell us about this is you guys were supposed to be disbanded in April.
Well, seeing as May 1st and I'm still here, or May 7th.
Is this program have an end date to it?
No.
Or will be around for the foreseeable
future? No, it's part of, you purchase Office 365, you get Fast Track.
Okay.
Done. I don't know how else to explain it. We've had this before, because originally part of this, the migration was part of the adoption offer, and that was also working with our partners that had businesses related to the adoption offer. That was a piece we did there. But Onboarding, no, we're not going away.
Thank you.
So I'll take this one up here in the front and then work my way across and then go back again.
As mailboxes are migrated, what does it look like to the end users?
So depending on what type of migration you're doing,
Exchange.
it is, there's always things that can go wrong, but it is a seamless approach. They're on their on-premises side, and when they cut over, when we move that mailbox over, the redirector is set in your environment so that the Outlook will repoint to their new location.
Okay.
So.
Easy enough. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. I'll take this one because I can work my way back here.
Oh, hey, Thomas, it's Chad Lindley from Dell.
Hey.
Just a quick follow-up on the attachment question. The recent announcement about being able to do 150 megabyte attachments for the send and receive, we've been testing with that recently. And even though the footnotes say that it doesn't apply to MAPI or EWS, it doesn't seem to be the case because we're able to migrate larger attachments now. So just keep that in mind.
That's a Dell statement. That's not a Microsoft statement.
Yeah,
so,
you may want to test that if you're trying to get larger attachments to migrate.
Yeah. No, great partner too, by the way, that we work with is also Dell. Is there anything else? Or was that just okay? Yes.
We're doing our own migration
Great.
along the help with the partner, and we have about 5,000 mailboxes. And what's manageable size for migrating a batch, or batch at a time, or for velocity migration?
Yeah, that's a really great question, and I appreciate you asking that because it really has to part of migrations, and I know maybe some people are hoping we're going to pop through all this technical stuff, Wiz, Bing, flying around things. Migrations is partly also a business culture discussion. People ask me, what can you do? Well, I can move a lot of mailboxes, but what can you do as a customer? You also have to think, like Ambu mentioned, your support desk. What can your support desk do? And the reason we say it's not that because migrations fail all the time. It's because it often happens that even if just a little blip happens, or they forgot that they were going to get moved, that happens too, even though you communicate. They don't pay attention to the T-minus emails. They're going to call their help desk. They're not going to go, I think I had a message about this. And so you have to think about, is your help desk going to be able to? You also think about what type of end users you have. You go to a real IT savvy company, or a company where IT is a means, right, to an end. Or maybe for some people this is being introduced for the first time, that they're, you're using Office 365 to expand your IT stamp. And so I would say it's your call what you feel comfortable with. I usually see, average on most customers, depending on the size of the customer, the bigger corporate companies, we start seeing a couple thousand a day, whereas these smaller businesses, and again, it also depends regionally where you're placed. Also, what approach you're going to give your end users. Are you going to come to their desk every day? I'm not suggesting you do that, right, at the day of the migration, but I really encourage you to think about what would your end user feel comfortable with. And then also, a lot of companies also used evangelistic events, like you get a t-shirt if you show up here, right? And we'll tell you about what's going to happen on this and this day. Okay. Does that help?
Somewhat. We'll talk after.
Okay. Take one more here, and then I'll go here, and then go around.
Okay. Hi. It's a kind of a two-part question. So it's a technical question around some conflicting information I've been reading. So we currently publish our Exchange 2010 environment through UAG, and I've read someplace that in order for UAG to coexist in a hybrid environment while we're doing the migration to Office 365, I need to turn off pre-authentication on UAG for that to be successful. Can anybody, from a technical standpoint, tell me if that's true?
So my peers from the onboarding team are nodding their heads fervently. You're more than welcome to talk with them afterwards.
Because you have to shut it off for all of UAG, not just the Exchange trunk, and that's what scares me because we publish a lot of things through UAG. Okay. And then the second question is, we were in the process of moving to 2013, so I've got my 2013 server stood up. We just haven't cut over CAS or anything yet. And I've also read that there may be some advantages to publishing, at a minimum, AutoDiscover on the 2013 CAS to facilitate the active sync device redirect properly. Because if I don't do that, then I've got 10,000 active sync devices to configure manually. Is that true?
Right.
That
That's true, and this is due to the latest Exchange 2013 release. So yeah.
Okay, I'll catch up with you.
Yeah, so definitely,
Thank
so
you
it is
very
true.
much.
It's a better experience. Gentlemen.
Hello. Based on the presentation, did I understand you correctly that that last piece of the service of Onboarding Center, which was the migration, is an optional service? Is that a paid subscription service?
No, it's not paid. It is onboarding is optional too, but we are going to contact you, and migration is part of it too.
Regardless of the scale of the enterprise, this could be 50,000, 60,000 mailboxes, and
Yes.
it's still included.
We're migrating some 150,000 seat customers, 200,000 seat customers, and 150 seat customers.
Excellent, excellent. Now, we did go through the fast track process.
Okay.
We do have an onboarding manager. However, this is the first time I heard about the role of a migration velocity manager. Is that something new?
No. So I apologize for that.
Okay. And then,
Please get with me afterwards, and we'll work through that.
Sure, thank you. And then the last question, more of a reference. I understand, as you explained earlier, that there are various conditions and criteria that apply to a successful migration and the velocity.
Mm-hmm.
However, for Exchange, the migrations from Exchange on-prem to Exchange Online, can you share, based on the experience of the 5,000 customers that you currently have, of course, a subset would be Exchange, on an average, what is the throughput? What was the maximum number of mailboxes you were able to move? And understand there were some business conditions. They might have pulled back and said, we don't need. But just a rough law of averages, what's been your experience, some references?
Yeah. So for a customer who was less than 500 MB mailboxes, we were able to migrate around 1,800 in a 10-hour period.
1,800
mailboxes in a window.
In a window of 10 hours.
Yeah. So, and that's the thing. So I'm saying a high variance. I mean, a 500 seat customer obviously can't migrate 1,800 seats.
Right.
But so it's the variance of their business. But I mean, we push on our site. We actually kind of have our suggested throughputs. If you go to deploy.office.com.
Thank you.
Yep. Gentleman back here.
Everybody's interested to know how quickly we can go.
Yep. That's why it's called fast track.
Exactly.
Not slow track.
So I have a little bit of a different scenario. So we're on Office 365 dedicated, moving to Office 365 multi-tenant.
Yes.
I understand there's a 1 terabyte per day limit on when migrating from those two environments. I was wondering if you guys could give us some insights into why that limitation exists.
You're a very unique scenario. Let's talk.
Yeah, I realize
afterwards.
that. So
let's talk afterwards, because that's not. I mean, if we talk about it here, that's information that's not going to necessarily help them. So definitely come and talk to me.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Yes, sir.
So drive shipping. Once you ship you the drive, how long does it take for Microsoft to ingest that data?
Yeah, sorry if I wasn't clear. We don't offer that. My team doesn't do that drive shipping.
It's not. It's still in public preview?
No, I'm saying my team doesn't do that. I'm not involved with that project.
All right, thank you.
So sorry. I wish I had the answer for you. Yes, sir.
I understand a lot of the resources that you work through currently partners a lot of times to offset engineers just between size and scale. Is that true? I heard that at Rumorville.
Could you come again with that question? I'm sorry. Maybe
So size and scale to be able to handle deployments, the massive amounts of customers out there that you offset and use partners.
No.
It's all internal?
It's internal. We have some of our staff that are actually moving mailboxes. It's all part of our bigger team. It's not, we don't outsource it to another team, up to a partner. Now, we will also work with partners. If a partner says, hey, I'm doing this, the onboarding center is working with a partner, and the partner says, hey, but I want you guys to do the migration. Sure, we'll do it for them. But the partner can also go, hey, I'm going to use my own tool sets to go do the migrations. And we then say, hey, fantastic, you've got it. There's a lot to go around, so.
Okay. And I came in a little late, but also, do you cover ADFS, SSO, and hybrid scenarios?
We do hybrid scenarios. We don't encourage necessarily everything, and then what I'm saying by that is we go by what our best practices are. And so we don't necessarily encourage every scenario, depending on this, but you can have business requirements that require you to do those certain things.
And ADFS, SSO as well? Same sign-on?
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. Do you have another one?
Not sure if you cover this, but how do you handle when we're migrating large mailboxes, right? And the archive hits the limit. Is it auto size, or do we have to continue to open a ticket with Microsoft to extend it?
So if you're moving from Exchange to Exchange, we move the active mailbox that's there. We don't discriminate on size unless it goes above what the offering, what the system can allow. So 80% of what the destination mailbox is.
So during our current migration, we're hitting the limit on the 100 gig archive.
We don't do archive.
Oh.
Sorry.
All right, thanks.
Yes, next question, and then I'll take yours.
Hi, I'm Andy from Gap, a
hey.
German Gold partner doing migrations as well for a couple of times, and I'm thinking a little bit about our business model. What else are you doing? Is it only the mailbox migration part, or also ADFS installations?
No, so at the onboarding center, and there was a session earlier, we talked about it. We will work with the partners, or if the partner has the customer, we'll work, we'll say, here's our best practice for setting up the ADFS, but we won't actually physically go do it for the customer. We'll give a guidance, but we expect either a partner or the customer to do that work.
So you don't do the ADFS installation, exchange hybrid setup, and so on?
No, we give you guidance for how to do that.
But you take care for the mailbox move. That's what you're doing. Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Hi, I am Ivan from Dell. And there was a question about migration throughput, which you answered in terms of mailboxes per hour. Could you answer the same questions, but in terms of gigabytes per hour?
There's, it's a fine question. It varies on what the platform, the methodology that's being used.
So it's Exchange migration. Let's say you have no bottleneck for the network. What is the best migration throughput you could get?
So I can take this afterward?
Okay. Okay, cool, Les. Thanks.
Any other questions for anybody else? I really appreciate you all staying around for asking questions. You feel free to grab us afterwards. Those two people, if you want your T-shirts, come on by. We also have magazines up here. Thank you for your time.